Welcome back. This week the replacement engine for the Suburban is going back in. More work is done on the SEMA build, and we got some new components going on to our Fox body project. Hope you enjoy it.
With all of the accessory components bolted to the engine, the students are putting it back into the engine bay. With the engine and transmission aligned, the students start putting in the bell housing bolts. Here you can see the gap between the engine and the transmission that will get closed up once they start tightening the bolts. Here the exhaust flange bolts are being installed. Some thread lock is added to the torque converter bolts. Then they're put in. Then the crankshaft is going to be held while the torque converter bolts are torqued. Here the students are wiping down the cross member, and we're going to add some flat black to clean up the engine compartment a little more. Here the students are separating the spindle from the control arm so we can replace the ball joints. Pull the trigger. Nice one. There you go. With the ball joints removed and the lower control arms glass beaded, they're adding a little bit of flat black paint. With the control arms painted, they're putting in the new ball joints. Now they can be put back onto the car. Next, they start removing the rotors from the spindles. Here we're removing the dust shields for easier cleaning. A couple of the bolts were a little too corroded, so we had to walk them off with a chisel. Wires now. The students are tapping out the holes in the bell housing that hold the starter linkage. Like everything else on this project, we're using new hardware to install it. The driver presses a button on the floorboard of the car, which activates the linkage to push on the starter switch. Now they're putting on the new chrome valve cover. New rubber grommets are added before installation. Our freshly painted differential cover goes on next. Here we begin putting our distributor back together by adding our new points and condenser to our freshly cleaned points plate. We should have the rest of the distributor back together and on the engine next week. Now the generator and some other key parts get a coat of paint.
This is the fuel pump off our 48 Chevy, and we've got a complete rebuild kit for it. It's a rather interesting fuel pump in that we have the pump assembly in the center here. We have a sediment bowl at the bottom, but at the top here there's a vacuum pump. The fuel pump creates a vacuum anyway as it's functioning, but they've added a vacuum pump itself at the top where they can take the vacuum that's being created by the pump and use it to operate the windshield wipers. So we could have put on just a basic pump, got away with it, and it would have looked fine and a little neater. But we thought this would be pretty interesting to put the pump back together exactly the way it was. So that's what we're going to do.
The first step is to remove the sediment bowl.
Here the vacuum pump is being taken apart. We're using a blind hole puller to remove the seals. Next time on Bulldog Builds, with the replacement engine in the Suburban, we hope to have it running. More new components will be added to the Fox body project. We'll also have more work done on our 48 Chevy SEMA build, and both engine teams will be competing at a regional in Pennsylvania. We'll let you know how they did. See you next week.